Well, hello. On January 8th, 2015, which would be about 3 years ago, I did one of my earlier reviews on a Wahl-Eversharp Skyliner 50. Now, this pen was a modern incarnation of a vintage fountain pen, and I hadn't really gotten into vintage fountain pens yet, and I hadn't bought too many super expensive pens yet, so it was kind of a shock to me. I talked a little bit about packaging and so on, and I got kind of angry about the packaging and didn't really say enough about the pen itself. And over the years I thought, yeah, this pen is one I'm going to give away. And yet here I am 3 years later, I still own the pen. So in this video, we're going to talk about why. If videos like this, where I review modern and vintage pens, interest you, please feel free to subscribe below. If there's a pen that initially disappointed you and now you like and you have kept, much to your surprise, I'd love to hear about it. So let's talk about the Wahl-Eversharp Skyliner 50. Now what you can see here in the footage, I have a car, Corvette actually, a 1957 Corvette, and the pen. This car came with the pen, so I will come back to that. First, let's take a look at the pen. The history of the Wahl-Eversharp company goes back to 1915, when Eversharp made its first successful, in fact I guess the first commercially successful, mechanical pencil. Wahl appeared on fountain pens in 1917, and then in 1929, for the first time, you saw Wahl-Eversharp. Now, sadly, in the 1940s, the race to make a successful ballpoint lost lots of money for the company. In fact, they had a patent lawsuit with the Reynolds Company and ended up being sold to Parker, where they languished as a lower-tier name, and then were revived. The original Skyliner had a very brittle plastic, a rubber sac, which you can see this is not a sac filler. And so if you get them, you should have that in mind. 2004, they wanted to revive the pen. In fact, there were two independent efforts to revive the pen. There was the Italian, and I'm sorry, I am going to butcher this because I do not speak Italian. I do not know the pronunciation rules. Emanuele Caltagirone. Okay, I'll just print it on the screen. And in Italy, and then Sid Saperstein, which I may be mispronouncing also, so I'll put that one up, to revive Wahl-Eversharp. Sid Saperstein was kind of a big fan of Wahl-Eversharp, and he wanted to revive their greatest hits. And he used Caltagirone's manufacturing resources, along with Saperstein's brand knowledge, marketing, and distribution to reissue vintage Wahl-Eversharp pens with modern technology. I will admit, I still hate the packaging. That said, it is a very nice pen. So, definitely a very vintage look, with this cap. They got some things right there. You can see it's a bit of a fingerprint magnet, of course. Also condensation because it's cold here in the basement. Skyliner 50 there. And then this, I said it's no longer a sac filler. What it is, this blind cap covers a converter. And that's the start of one of my complaints. I might as well get that over with. I will say a converter makes more sense in a modern pen than a rubber bladder. I will accept a rubber bladder in a vintage pen. I will not accept one in a modern pen. That said, the problem is I can't see the ink level. I mean, normally your piston pens will unscrew here or here. Not this one. I can't see the ink level. It's just like those bladder fillers. You can't tell it's out of ink till, boop, it's out of ink. Cleaning isn't easy. When I try and put my rubber squeeze bulb thing, it doesn't quite reach down to here, so this pen's a little bit tougher to clean out also. So it doesn't have a lot of the advantages of a cartridge converter pen. And of course you have to use the long cartridges, not the short ones, because the short ones you'll just never be able to push them in. And the packaging is excessive. This car... Oh. There we go. This car came as part of the packaging. In my original review, I also showed a very fancy box that was part of the packaging, and just excessive for what you get. It is a nice pen, but I felt like it could have been cheaper without all the packaging. It's just as simple as that. This model car has been sitting on my bookshelf for years. It does nothing. The box it came in is long gone, and yeah, what was the point? So it may sound like I'm very down on this pen, and I'm not. Like I said, I've kept this pen for 3 years now, and there has to be a really good reason. I'll tell you what that really good reason is. I like how it writes. I'll go a spell without writing with it, and then I'll feel, oh, I should do it. And then I do it, and I like it. Now, the cleaning out is going to be a little bit of a bugger, but then again, I don't seem to mind the cleaning out thing with some of my vintage pens that are hard to clean out. And this is easier to clean out than some of them, so there is that to consider. And I respect the fact that they have actually brought back a number of vintage designs. So I want to show you the writing experience with this pen. So with this pen, there were not a whole lot of choices for nibs. I would describe this as a medium, but like I said, they didn't give me any options. The ink in it, as near as I can tell, this is a bottle that was sent to me mislabeled, so I've had to, by guess and by golly, figure out what it is KWZ Menthol Green. I happen to really like this color, so I hope I'm guessing right, because when this bottle runs empty, I'm definitely getting another one. This pen, even though it's a steel nib and it's the lowest cost Wahl-Eversharp offering, does offer a certain amount of line variation and softness. Nobody's going to call it a wet noodle. But it definitely offers some line variation to make it interesting. So let's check out a few things about its writing. Let's check out its wetness and flow. Unflexed, no trouble keeping up with what little it's capable of, no trouble keeping up. If I try the smear test, unflexed, I think that's pretty wet. Flexed, booyah, that's wet. And then I'd like to say I've done the reverse writing test, but I really don't remember if I was even doing it back then, and if I was doing it back then, 3 years ago, how it turned out. So I guess we'll do it again. Oh. And the reason would be it's not very memorable. OMG. So not a reverse writer if you're into that kind of thing. So now we'll turn our attention to a writing sample. And as always, I speed up the middle because some of these quotes get a bit long. So when I do one of these reviews, I always like to talk a little bit about value and, if something happened to this pen, if I would buy it again. And I feel really guilty about this one. Honestly, I don't think there's great value. It's a very nice pen. It writes very well. It's a bit overpriced. And I just have that emotional feeling that if they'd get rid of the stupid car and go for a little more simple packaging, I'd feel like I was getting better value. I know, some people, their perception of value goes up if they get really good packaging. I'm just not one of them. So take that with a grain of salt. If something happened to this pen, I will admit I like writing with it. I like the way it writes. I don't think I would replace it. Now, this is not a pen I'm going to give away or even try to sell. Although this is a pen I could be talked into selling, probably. It won't be one I'll be trying to sell, but yeah. Name the right trade or price or whatever, I might be talked into it. But I like it enough, I want to keep it. I enjoy writing with it. Not all the time. I think it's a pain in the ass to clean out with the way the converter is. But then again, it's a lot easier to clean out than any of my vintage pens, so take that with a grain of salt too. But honestly, if something happens to it or I end up selling it, I won't be replacing it. This has made me open to other Wahl-Eversharps. When I did my top pens of 2017, I included some aspirational pens. The Wahl-Eversharp Deco Band is on that list. I will also point out that packaging seems to be a thing with this brand. If you look around, there is a Wahl-Eversharp that looks similar to this, but just a much fancier finish, that has a glass skyscraper as its packaging. So I'm hoping Wahl-Eversharp is getting away from that kind of thing and moving toward pens like the Wahl-Eversharp Deco Band that offer at least something unique in filling mechanism or writing experience. So that said, I'm happy that Wahl-Eversharp is bringing some of these vintage designs back, and in a high quality form. I have reviewed some other brands that are bringing back old pens that leave me a little cold. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. You can look back through my reviews if you're really curious. So anyway, hope that if you're interested in videos like this where I talk about vintage or modern pens and review them, please feel free to subscribe below. If there's a pen that you didn't like originally but has grown on you, please feel free to discuss that in the comments. So I thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.